Who's the first witness you're calling this morning? Okay, and do the motions have anything to do with Emma Lou? Dr. Lou? Okay.
We just need to go through the stipulation.
Oh, do we have the stipulation? Jeanette, the stipulation about legal identification?
Those are not in.
Should be an exhibit, a court exhibit perhaps?
Yes, it should be a court exhibit. In fact, I think she actually might even put it in the evidence.
Yeah, it should be with the evidence because it's... It's a single piece of paper with everybody's signature at the bottom. It almost looks like a pleading. Yep, she found it. So Ms. Klein, just prompt me when you want me to read it.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
I found it.
Thank you, Judge.
Or, that's incorrect. Jeanette
Need
found
one
it.
more second, I'm sorry.
Okay, they're coming down. That's it?
Okay.
But can I, are these the motions in limine that were filed? No, I need the motions in limine that were filed.
These we are not using. Okay.
No, I don't think this is the right one. It's the state apparently filed some motions this morning?
Yes, we sent I believe Mr. Dunn sent a courtesy copy to Nikki, Judge, as well.
Okay, I'll ask Nikki.
So, hold on. These are,
Unless they put on another Deborah's Day, I will check.
these are in evidence, but I will be using them and leaving them here, Madam Clerk.
Okay, they are on their way.
Here's the folder I just gave you with the exhibits. I need these. Okay.
Not everything?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, wait, hold on. This can go back with the photos already. Goes back in because
I've officially gone through 4 of these since the start of this trial.
which is why.
Okay, defense, let's get into position, please. Okay, everybody, please stand for the jury.
Please rise.
Good morning. Good morning. Jose? Jose's getting the pads of paper. While he's doing that, thank you for reminding me. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. For the record, the State Defense, Mr. Medina, are present. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you continued to follow my orders and rules as always? Yes. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, as soon as Jose brings your pads of paper, we will begin for the morning. Had him so busy doing other things this morning, he got a little distracted. Thank you, Jose. Okay, with all of our jurors having their notepads, I will also ask everybody in the courtroom to take a moment to silence your cell phones as I am doing. And as that is happening, state if you would like to call your next witness.
Yes, Judge, the state calls Dr. Emma Lou.
Dr. Liu, if you would kindly come forward to be sworn in.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Please have a seat.
Good morning. Dr. Liu, if you would just make sure that all of your answers are verbal out loud so all of our jurors can hear you.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Klein, when she is comfortable and you are ready, you may begin your questioning.
Are you comfortable now?
I am.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Lou, would you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Yes, my name is Emma Liu. I am the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner for Miami-Dade County.
Does that mean that you work at the medical examiner's office?
Yes,
And for how long have you been the deputy chief medical examiner?
since April of 2001.
How long have you been with Dade County Medical Examiner's office?
Since July of 1991.
And could you please give members of the jury your educational background?
Yes, I graduated from medical school and did a one-year internship in Canada. I then started a 4-year pathology residency program. After my first year in residency, I went to England, to the University of Leeds, to join their Department of Forensic Medicine for 1 year before coming back to complete my training in pathology. After my training in pathology, I worked for 3 years as a staff pathologist at the Royal University Hospital in my home city in Canada before coming down to Miami in July of 1991. And I have been here ever since.
And could you please, I think you pretty much went through it, but your medical training?
Yes, my medical school was a 5-year degree. And before that, I did a BS honors.
And have you received any further training while at the Miami-Dade Medical Examiner's office?
Yes, my first year here was as a forensic pathology fellow, which means I was already a pathologist, but I wanted to subspecialize in forensic pathology.
And do you consult to other agencies in the field of forensic pathology?
Yes, in the past I've gone to some Caribbean nations who do not have their own pathologist, and I consult on cases for internal affairs and other agencies.
Now, when you do that, do you get paid privately or does that fee go to Dade County Medical Examiner's office?
Regardless of how much time I spend on the job, I am paid by salary, so I don't make overtime.
And Dr. Liu, have you been published and do you lecture regularly now as part of your duties at the medical examiner's office?
Yes, I have been published in the two major forensic journals in the United States, and I was co-author and co-editor of a textbook on forensic pathology. And yes, we lecture on a very regular basis.
And does that lecturing also involve teaching in the field of forensic pathology?
Yes, we are always teaching as well, because we have 4 forensic pathology fellows every year at the medical examiner department.
Do you have a continuing education obligation as both a doctor and as a medical examiner?
Yes, as a licensed physician in the state of Florida, we are bound to 40 hours of continuing medical education every 2 years. So yes, we have to maintain our continuing education.
I'm assuming you're up to date.
Yes, I am.
Please explain to the members of the jury, what is a medical examiner?
A medical examiner in the county of Miami-Dade is a person who is charged under Florida Statute 406.11 to examine and investigate deaths that fall under medical examiner jurisdiction, which in summary includes all non-natural deaths such as accidents, suicides, homicides, sudden unexplained deaths, and all deaths in penal institutions, and all deaths that are suspected of being a biohazard or health concern to the community but have not yet been diagnosed. So that is a summary of the types of cases we investigate.
And is the Dade County Medical Examiner's Office an entity of the police or of the state attorney's office?
We are an independent department under county government. We work with the police and work with the public defender's office as well as the state attorney's office, but we are not part of them.
Could you please share with the members of the jury some of the daily responsibilities of the medical examiner?
Our main responsibilities are responding to scenes of violent and suspicious deaths, conducting autopsies, testifying in court like today, testifying in depositions, teaching, and consulting.
Now, you said responding to scenes is one of the priorities.
Yes, that is correct.
How many scenes, Dr. Liu, have you responded to?
I have responded to over 1,100 scenes, the last one being yesterday afternoon.
And how many autopsies have you done and supervised?
I have conducted around 5,000 autopsies in Miami-Dade jurisdiction, and I have supervised thousands more.
And when you do an autopsy, could you explain the process? Who handles the organs when an autopsy is done, either by you or here in the Dade County Medical Examiner's office?
In our department, the doctors take out the organs and examine the organs.
Is that customary?
It is customary for our department, but in other jurisdictions, sometimes a technician will take out the organs and sometimes even dissect the organs.
But here, you or another, you do it when you are doing the autopsy, is that correct?
Yes, I make the incisions, I take out the organs, I examine the organs.
Please explain what is pathology.
Pathology is the practice of medicine using laboratory techniques, such as the autopsy.
Please explain what is forensics.
Well, forensic pathology is pathology pertaining to cases of interest to the courts or medical legal cases.
What is an autopsy?
An autopsy is the examination of a dead body. It consists of 2 parts. One we call the external examination, and that's when we look at the outside of the body and note such things as height, weight, color of hair, eyes, teeth, scars, tattoos, any evidence that doctors or paramedics have treated the patient, and any evidence of injury. After looking at the outside of the body, front and back, and in all the orifices, we then do the internal examination, and that is when we open up the body cavities and examine all of the organs and tissues from the brain inside the head down to the pelvic organs.
Dr. Luke, have you ever been qualified to testify as an expert in the field of forensic pathology?
Yes, I have.
Where and how many times?
In Miami-Dade County, it probably around 500 times, but I have been qualified in other jurisdictions as well.
Dr. Liu, were you assigned ME case number 2013-02075?
Yes.
But at this time, I'd ask that you please read the stipulation. Jurors, Dr. Liu, please hold on.
Ladies and gentlemen, a stipulation is an agreement between the state and the defense that allows the court and the jury to accept a piece of evidence without going through the technical requirement of introducing that evidence. In this case, the state and the defense have stipulated to what is known as legal identification of the victim. This means that Jennifer Alfonso is the person who died and was autopsied under Dade County Medical Examiner case number 2013-02075. You will receive this as part of evidence in this case.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, Doctor. In what capacity were you assigned to ME case number 2013-02075?
I went to the scene. I took the scene photographs for the medical examiner at the scene. I supervised the autopsy, so I was at the autopsy. I helped to examine the body, and I proofread the autopsy report.
So, were you with somebody else?
I was with Dr. Dana Johnson.
Who is she?
Dr. Johnson was one of our forensic pathology fellows that year.
Is that common practice? I think you said it before, but is that common practice to have pathology fellows at the Dade County Medical Examiner's office?
Yes, we have 4 every year.
Okay, is that because you're a teaching facility?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, you said you supervised. Were you with, did Dr. Jada Johnson perform an autopsy in this case?
Yes, she did.
And were you with her when she was performing that autopsy in this case?
Yes, I was.
Now, was that her first autopsy if she was a fellow?
No, that was not her first autopsy.
Is there a prerequisite for a fellow to have done a certain number of autopsies before they're in fact allowed to be a fellow at the Dade County Medical Examiner?
Well, first of all, in order to become a pathologist, you need at least 50 autopsies before you can acquire your board certification in anatomic pathology.
Okay. Now, you indicated that you went to the scene. Was Dr. Johnson at the scene also?
Yes,
So you were with her during that?
yes,
And you documented the scene, is that correct?
yes,
Okay. And you also indicated that you were with her in the morgue when the autopsy was being performed, is that correct?
yes,
Okay. And was it your job supervising her to essentially be with her and follow her work while as she's conducting the autopsy?
Objection leading.
Sustained. Ask an open-ended question, please.
What did you do while she was doing the autopsy?
I examined the body along with Dr. Johnson. I assisted her with some of the pathways.
And who wrote the report, the autopsy report?
Dr. Johnson wrote the draft report. I proofread it and revised it to its final edition.
And then do you add your signature to the report?
Yes, I do.
So it's fair to say that the report is co-authored.
Yes, it is.
So, let's talk about the scene. You responded to 5555 Southwest 67th Avenue, apartment 105. Is that correct, Dr. Liu?
Yes, that is correct.
Do you recall approximately when you arrived?
Our first arrival was at 8:36 p.m.
I'm sorry, I think you were about to say something else.
and we returned to the scene when the police were ready for us at 1:35 a.m.
Okay, so you didn't actually go into the residence at 8:36. You went in at 1.
Yes, that is correct.
And Dr. Liu, ask you to step down for a second. picture fairly and accurately depict how you found the person who you autopsied in case number 201302075?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. Could you please tell us what you were able to observe about the scene?
There were a number of things we observed. Beginning from the outside of the residence, there were multiple cameras mounted around the property, the building. And as we entered, we knew that the body was located in the kitchen area. And there was a casing just outside the door of the kitchen. And of course, the body was in the corner, far right corner of the kitchen floor.
So what exactly did you do when you were on the scene?
Dr. Johnson and I both made our own notes. I photographed the scene, I photographed the body, and helped to examine the body at the scene.
Did you locate something in the victim's hair?
Yes, there's a piece of foreign material, dark on one side, that was pulled out of her long hair.
And upon first examination, were you able to tell where that came from?
Not initially, but as we looked around the body at the scene, we determined that it was from the cabinet behind the body, behind her head.
Okay. Now, you said that you moved the body at some point. Is that correct?
After we documented the body in place.
So, is this picture a fair and accurate reflection of how you saw her, saw any case number 201302075 Jennifer Alfonso when you first got there?
Yes,
And so, after documenting, it's only then that you move her.
yes.
Okay. And Dr. Lou, I'm going to ask you to step down again, please. Dr. Lou, I'm going to show you what is in evidence, the State's Exhibit 111. Should take a look at it first. Now, Dr. Lou, you just said that you saw a piece of cabinet after you moved your body.
Correct.
Does this picture fairly and accurately depict what you just described?
Yes, it does.
So, now when you say you moved the body, is this the victim having already been moved?
Yes. Her head was originally in this corner here. These are the cabinets. The white is the floor. So her head was right up against the corner and covering this white spot right here.
Okay. And so upon moving it, that's what you're referring to just now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. You may have a seat. After documenting the scene and the body after documenting the body and the scene, was the body then transported to the Dade County Medical Examiner's office?
Yes, it was.
What happens there?
Well, the autopsy has begun.
Okay. Dr. Lou, we refer to this case as case number 201302075.
Yes.
Could you explain, please, to the members of the jury how our medical examiner case numbers assigned?
Every case that we investigate has its own unique and specific number, so that no other case before that case and no case after that case will ever have that number. It identifies a specific person.
So one person gets one case number.
Yes.
Now, you just said that an autopsy was performed at the Dade County Medical Examiner.
Yes, that is correct.
Did you perform an external examination on the body in any case number 132002075 Jennifer Alfonso?
Yes, we did.
How tall was Miss Alfonso?
The body was 5'6"
And how much did she weigh?
149 pounds.
Was there any evidence of medical intervention?
At the scene, we saw EKG patches or electrocardiographic patches that the fire rescue personnel put on her to determine whether there was any electrical activity in the heart.
And you get your exercise this morning, Dr. Little. You can step down a minute. I'm showing you what is in evidence as State's Exhibit number 71. Does this picture fairly accurately describe the electrocardiogram pads that you were referring to?
Yes, it does.
Doctor, during the external examination, what observations were you able to make about Jennifer's left hand?
On the back of the left hand, there is what we call gunpowder stippling.
Could you please explain what stippling is?
When a gun is fired, not only does the bullet come out, pieces of gunpowder also come out. And within a certain range of fire, those pieces of gunpowder strike the skin and cause these little red marks, which are actually tiny scrapes. And it is those tiny scrapes that we call gunpowder stippling.
And based on your experience, what does the presence of stippling indicate to you?
It indicates that for handguns, the end of the barrel of the gun was within 2 to 3 feet of the victim.
Thank you.
And based on your external examination, Doctor, what evidence of injuries were you able to observe?
The body had multiple gunshot wounds.
Did you find stippling in other places on her skin?
Yes, we did.
We're going to discuss that as we go through each injury. Dr. Liu, you just said that you found gunshot wounds. Were those penetrating gunshot wounds, some of them?
Some of them were penetrating, where the bullet enters the body and stays in the body.
Let's go back to the autopsy now. Did you perform internal examination?
Yes, we did.
Other than the gunshot wounds, was there anything remarkable about the internal examination?
No, except for a single small gallstone.
That wasn't a lethal type of injury, is it?
Not at all.
Okay. So now let's talk about the gunshot wounds. Dr. Liu, can you tell, based on your experience, the difference between an entry wound and an exit wound?
Yes,
Could you please tell how and explain that?
entrance wounds are generally smaller and rounder than exit wounds, which are more irregular and generally larger, but that is just a rule of thumb, general rule of thumb.
Now, when you're doing an examination, is there a specific way that you label gunshot wounds for the purposes of describing them?
When we start an autopsy, we don't know if a wound is an entrance wound or an exit wound, so we use numbers to label the wounds.
Okay. Use numbers when you document them in a photograph?
Correct.
And how do you use that same number when you're preparing a report, or do you do different documentation for a wound?
After the autopsy, we know which number corresponds with the entrance number will correspond with an exit number if the wound is a through and through wound. So after the autopsy, we have determined all the pathways. We can match up the entrance wounds with the exit wounds. Then we'll use letters. We don't want to use numbers for the report because we don't want anybody to use that number as being in that order in which the wounds were sustained. In other words, we don't want to use 1 because somebody may think that was the first wound that was sustained.
Right. You're not saying that by those numbers?
No, that's why we use letters.
Okay. And is every number accounted for in a letter or wound as you just described?
Yes.
Do you take x-rays when performing an autopsy?
For every gunshot wound case, we take x-rays.
And did you take x-rays in this case?
Yes, we did.
You may.
Dr. Liu, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as States Exhibit 9W, 9V, 9U, and 9T. I'm going to ask you to please take a look at those. Do you recognize those photos?
Yes, I do.
And what are those photos of?
They are photographs of the x-rays of the body of Miss Alfonso.
Now, those photos don't have the case number 201-30275 on it, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Did you have the opportunity to review those exact photos prior to coming to court today?
Yes, I did.
Did you have the opportunity to compare this actual exhibit to the ones that you have in your case file at the medical examiner's office?
Yes, I did.
And did you be able to reach the conclusion that they're the same?
Yes, they are.
Did you then sign and date the exhibits once you were able to determine that these pictures of these x-rays in fact match this case number?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and are those your initials on the back of each of those exhibits?
Yes.
And do those pictures fairly and accurately depict the x-rays that you took in this case?
Yes, they do.
And at this time, I offer them to evidence what's been marked for identification as 9T, 9U, 9V, and 9W.
With no objection, they are moved. Thank you, Jeanette.
State Exhibit 9W is States 184, 9V is States 185, 9U is States 186, 9T is State 187.
Would I like to have Dr. Liu step down to publish that to the members of the jury, if that's okay?
You may.
Thank you, Dr. Liu.
Apologize.
That's right. Dr. Liu, what's the purpose of taking x-rays in gunshot wound cases?
That tells us if there are any projectiles left in the body, how many there are, and where they are.
Can you always capture all of the projectiles in one x-ray?
No, our x-ray cassette is only so big and the body is much bigger, so we need multiple x-rays all over the body in those areas where there are gunshot wounds.
Okay, and if you think that you have a wound and you can't find a bullet, are there times that you re-x-ray the body?
Yes.
Okay, is that common practice to do?
Yes.
Okay, and is that done like days later, or is it done right then while you're still conducting the autopsy?
During the autopsy, because we want to find those projectiles.
Okay, fine. So, tell us please, explain to the jury what we are looking at in States Exhibit 184.
This is a photograph of the x-ray of the head and neck area, and it's turned to on the left side, just like this.
Okay, and could you just indicate please where the projectiles are?
Yes.
We see.
The white spots that you see down here, those are the projectiles represented.
Okay, thank you. And could you please explain to the members of the jury what we are looking at in States number 185?
This is an x-ray of the chest area. So this is as if you're looking at the person. This is the person's right side, this is the person's left side. These four white spots are four projectiles in the body.
Okay. And now let's look at States Exhibit 186, please, in evidence. Share with us what we're looking at here.
This is during the autopsy after 3 of those 4 projectiles have been recovered. And because we needed more assistance in locating that 4th projectile, another x-ray was taken. And here it is right here.
And again, that was done simultaneous while the autopsy was going on? Oh.
Overruled.
Now, Dr. Liu, explain what we're looking at in 187.
We're looking at an x-ray of the wrist area and the hand are more or less. So this is the left wrist and left hand. These are the bones. The long, straight things you see here are the two bones of the forearm. When you get down to this area, it looks like a big cloud because the bones, the two bones just above the wrist have been totally shattered by gunshot wounds.
Dr. Lee, thank you. I'm going to ask you to have a seat. Now, Dr. Liu, you said that the purpose of the x-rays is to be able to locate the projectiles, correct?
To document and to locate the projectiles, yes.
And when you find them, what do you do with them?
We clean them carefully, dry them off, and put them inside a labeled envelope, which is then photographed and then sealed.
And did you do that in this case?
Yes.
Okay. And then what do you do with them once you put them in these envelopes?
If the detective is at the scene, we receipt the evidence over to the detective.
Okay. And did you do that in this case?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
You may.
The defense counsel does not have an objection to me admitting this into evidence.
Is that correct? So moved?
Judge, at this time, I've moved 10-0 into evidence.
State Exhibit 10-0, marked for identification, now becomes State Exhibit 188.
Thank you, Jeanette. You may proceed.
May I approach?
Yes.
Dr. Liu, I'm showing you what is in evidence as State's Exhibit, I should remember that, 188. Do you recognize that picture?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You know what? If you wouldn't mind, I'm asking you to come down again. Would you tell us, please, what we're looking at in State's 188? Oh.
Are the 9 envelopes of projectiles and projectile fragments that were recovered from the body during the autopsy.
Okay. And what is the writing that we see above it?
Dr. Johnson has labeled these envelopes with our case number, Alfonso's name, the police case number, where the projectile or projectile fragment was found in the body, and then she initialed it and dated it.
And that's her signature?
Yes.
And you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Madam Clerk,
Yes.
I'm going to be referring to this. Is it okay with you if I just leave it on top of the TV for right now? Okay, thank you. Okay. Now, prior to actually conducting the autopsy, do you document the body?
Everything must be documented before we start making incisions for the autopsy.
And do you document the body, Dr. Lewis, before you put numbers on the actual injuries that you're looking at, or do you only do it with the numbers?
No, I like to document the body as it is, and then we start placing numbers.
Okay. The defense counsel has no objection to me offering into evidence what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 10N.
Is that correct? So moved without objection?
State Exhibit 10N, marked for identification, now becomes State Exhibit 189.
Dr. Liu, I'm showing you what's in evidence as State's Exhibit 189. You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
This is a photograph of the upper half of the body of Miss Alfonso.
Okay, and I'm going to ask to publish this to the jury. Dr. Liu, I'm just going to ask you to sit down. explain to the members of the jury when you document what we're looking at here.
You see a number of red marks on the body. Those are gunshot wounds. Most of those red marks are gunshot wounds. So you see one on the right side of the chin, on the left side of the chin, on the left, sorry, right up in the chest, the bottom of the left side of the head, one on the right breast, and 4 on the left breast, and you see 2 out of 8 holes on the left wrist.
You then indicated that you document the body with numbers, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Judge, I've showed defense counsel what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 10M, and I believe he has no objection to this being offered into evidence.
So moved without objection?
State Exhibit 10M marked for identification now becomes State Exhibit 190.
Dr. Liu, I'm showing you what's in evidence as State's Exhibit 190. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Doctor, you mind if we explain it and publish it at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. Doctor, please explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what we're looking at in 190.
This is a close-up photograph of the red marks that we saw on the body in the previous exhibit. Now we have placed white numbers on a red background next to each of the gunshot wounds.
Now, this doesn't show the ones that you referred to earlier on the wrist. This is just the chest and face area. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Dr. Reed. Thank you. Dr. Liu, I'd like to go through each of the gunshot wounds. Okay?
Yes.
So let's begin with what is gunshot wound A.
Yes.
Could you please tell us what number that would correlate to in this photo?
Gunshot wound A is on the right side of the chin and is labeled number 1.
And was this a penetrating gunshot wound?
Yes, the bullet went into the body and stayed inside the body.
Now, when you document, Dr. Liu, do you then, with each wound, do a closer-up documentation via photograph?
Yes, we do.
Judge, pursuant to defense not having an objection, I'm offering into evidence what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 10L.
Is that correct? So moved?
State Exhibit 10L marked for identification now becomes State Exhibit 191.
You may publish.
Dr. Liu, I'm showing you what's in evidence as State's Exhibit 191. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, what is that?
This is a close-up photograph of gunshot wound A, which is labeled 1.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to publish it. We're going to publish it to the jury, and then we'll talk about it. So just indicate for us on here, where is number 1?
On the right side of the chin.
Okay.
Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Can I ask you just to move the television over just a little bit so some of our jurors near the wall can see it without contorting? Thank you.
Better? Yes? Okay. So now, Dr. Liu, we're looking at what is 191 in evidence. Okay? What is this?
Gunshot wound A, which is labeled number 1, is on the right side of the chin.
And is there anything unusual about this?
It is not your typical appearance gunshot wound in that it's not nice and round.
Okay. Could you please tell us the injury that this gunshot wound ready to go when it entered her body?
It went through the muscle on the right side of the neck, through the right upper chest, and into the right side of the spine, and then came, actually grazed or fractured the right side of the spine before striking the back of the right third and fourth ribs.
Okay. I see. Now? You said that it struck fractured the right side vertebrae of her spine. Could this have potentially caused Jennifer to drop?
It could have caused her to drop.
Were you able to determine the path of the projectile?
Yes. The projectile went from the front of Miss Alonso towards her back and going downwards in her body.
We're going to discuss the path again in a minute. Was anything recovered as a result of this wound?
Yes, the projectile that caused this wound was recovered from the back of the inside of the right chest cavity.
And would that have been documented and put in an envelope?
Yes.
Okay. So Dr. Liu, I'm going to ask you to step down, please. And could you please indicate to the members of the jury which one was the fragment from wound A and which one was the actual projectile that was recovered from wound A?
The projectile that was recovered from the back of the right chest cavity is this one down here, left lower hand corner. And the fragment that was recovered from the right side of the spine is this one down here in the right lower hand corner.
Judge, with the court's permission, I'm going to ask Dr. Liu to write on the exhibit A, indicating that those are the projectiles and the fragments from there.
Actually on the document in evidence?
Correct?
Let's go sidebar.
Okay.
Dr. Liu, if you'd like to take a seat, thank you.
Ready? Okay. You know what, Dr. Liu? Instead of writing on it, why don't we use a sticky? Okay? And if you could please take a sticky and mark down, you said it was the left lower corner.
And the right lower corner.
Okay, if you could just put an A on both of those. And we'll put it next to those. Thank you, Dr. Now, let's talk about the path. You said before about the path
Yes.
of the projectile. How do you determine that?
We simply follow the track of injured tissues right from the entrance wound to the projectile.
Okay. And Dr. Liu, have you ever used what's called a dummy, a styrofoam model of a person to assist a jury in explaining how you go about and determine the path of the bullet?
Yes, many times.
That would be an H2 in this case.
Yes.
You may.
Okay. Now, Doctor, I'm going to ask you to step down. This is the visual aid we were just discussing, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, fine. Now, this person appears to be, we'll refer to them as a person, in a position, is this consistent, more or less consistent, with how you found the victim in this case at the scene?
Yes, except that she was flat on her back.
Okay, fine. Would it assist you to move her in any way for purposes of this?
Right now, it's fine with
Okay, fine.
her in this
That's what
position.
I'm asking. So, Dr. Liu, you indicated that you knew the path of wound A,
Yes,
correct?
down the path of gunshot wound A.
Okay, and could you please indicate by using the dowel, what was the path of wound A?
The bullet entered the right side of the chin, went down to her right upper back area, going front to back and downward in the body.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. Have a seat. And could you please tell the members of the jury what would have been the immediate effect of this type of gunshot wound on Jennifer?
She would have,
Overruled.
Ms. Alfonso would have suffered pain, bleeding, and possibly collapsed.
Would there be any type of difficulty breathing associated with the contusion to the right lobe of the lung that you mentioned occurred in gunshot wound A?
Yes, the bullet in going through the right upper chest also bruised her right lung, so she could have some increased difficulty in breathing.
Okay. Now, Dr. Liu, let's go to gunshot wounds B and C.
Yes.
Okay. Could you please tell us, sorry, you have to move. I'm going to ask you to step down, Dr. Liu. Using the overall, could you please tell us what numbers in the picture is associated with gunshot wounds B and C?
And for the, excuse me, Dr. Liu, for the record, this is 190 that we're looking at?
Yes, I'm sorry, Judge. This is 190.
Thank you. Dr. Liu, you may answer the question.
In this exhibit, gunshot wounds 4 and 5 on the left side of the chin or the lower jaw are gunshot wounds B and C.
Okay. Judge, at this time, I'm offering to evidence without defense objection what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 10K.
So noted.
State Exhibit 10K marked for identification now becomes State Exhibit 192.
Judge, without asking you each time, is there understanding my...
You have a
on
you have
regular
standing
basis?
permission.
Thank you. And Dr. Liu, I'm showing you what's in evidence as State's Exhibit 192. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
This is a photograph of the left side of the face of Ms. Alfonso.
Okay, I'm going to ask to publish it and so to have you explain it to the members of the jury.
Gunshot wounds 4 and 5 on the left side of the lower jaw are gunshot wounds B and C.
Okay. Could you tell us where the projectile, or where the wound in B went, or where it's located?
The projectile was found just inside the skin in the bone of the lower jaw, just below and in front of the wound.
Okay. And gunshot wound C, which is number 5 in the picture.
Yes, there were 2 projectiles that were found inside and perhaps slightly lower than gunshot wound C.
Okay. And where did these go in terms of the jaw? What injuries did they cause?
Well, the lower jaw, the left side of the lower jaw was fractured. left side of the lower jaw was lacerated or torn by these projectiles.
Are these penetrating gunshot wounds?
Yes, they are penetrating gunshot wounds in that the projectiles went into the body and stayed in the body.
Is there anything unusual about these wounds?
Before I was telling you that entrance gunshot wounds are nice and round. These are not nice and round.
What does that tell you?
It tells me that the projectiles that caused these wounds likely went through something else first before going into her jaw.
And when you say likely went through something else, you mean a different part of the body, or as opposed to coming from directly from the firearm?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you can have a seat, Doctor. Were you able to determine the path of the bullets, projectiles, for wounds B and C, which is 4 and 5?
Yes.
Okay. And once again, Doctor, I'm going to ask you to step down. And Lisa the dummy, could you please tell us the path of wound B?
B is on the left side of the lower jaw. It went in from left to right, going slightly downward and slightly back to front in the body.
And you're able to determine the path of wound C.
Yes.
Explain and demonstrate.
Gunshot wound C, which is more behind gunshot wound B, still on the lower jaw, goes from left to right and goes slightly downward in the body.
Thank you. Dr. Liu, what if anything was recovered from gunshot wounds B and C?
Although there were only 2 holes in the skin, 3 projectiles were recovered from the lower jaw.
Could you tell us how that's possible?
That is possible because 2 projectiles went in very closely to each other, so they shared the same hole.
Now, going back to the picture, Dr. Liu, I'm going to ask you to come back and stand up. Tell the members of the jury which hole had 2 go through it and which hole had 1 go through it. If you know.
Not really, however, next to gunshot wound 4 or B, I recovered this projectile just inside the skin. Dr. Johnson recovered 2 projectiles close to this skin wound, which is number 5, or gunshot wound C.
Thank you. Wait while you're here. Now, you said that in total you recovered 3 projectiles, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Could you please indicate with a sticky, which is the one that you recovered from wound B, number 4?
It is this one from the left chin.
Okay? I'm going to ask you to please just put that. Now, you just said that Dr. Johnson recovered 2 from wound 5, which you're not sure exactly if they came from B or C. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Could you please indicate the 2 that came from either wound B or wound C?
Yes.
Thank you. So these 2 on the top, where you put the sticky, came from wound C, but potentially from wound B. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
You can't say for sure.
That is correct.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Please have a seat. something that you just mentioned. I'm sorry to ask you to step down again. You said that you removed a deformed projectile. Showing the picture of the projectile, could you explain what you mean when you say the word deformed?
Bullets are nice and smooth with either a rounded tip or like slightly squared off tip, but and these are all irregular, so we simply say that they've been deformed.
And why does that happen?
When bullets go into the body through tissues, and especially through hard tissues, they can open up and pieces can be lost, and they just get bent out of shape, essentially.
Does that happen when they hit bone as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Could you please tell us what would have been the immediate effect of gunshot wounds B and C to Jennifer?
Definite pain because the left side of her lower jaw was fractured and there would be bleeding.
Now, Dr. Liu, let's talk about, please, gunshot wound D.
Yes.
Okay? We're going to go back to the overall, which is 190 in evidence. You don't need to step down, Dr. Liu, as long as the members of the jury can see. Can you please tell the members of the jury which number is associated with gunshot wound D?
D is on the right upper chest, right below the neck, and it is labeled number 2.
Number 2.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, did you take is that a penetrating gunshot wound?
Yes, it is another penetrating gunshot wound where the bullet stayed inside the body.
And you took a close-up of that as well, Dr. Liu?
Yes, we did.
Judge, I'm offering into evidence without defense objection. What's the mark for identification? A State's Exhibit 10J.
No objection? So moved?
State Exhibit 10J, marked for identification, now becomes State Exhibit 193.
I'm showing you what's in evidence, a State's Exhibit 193. You recognize that, Dr. Liu?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and what is that?
This is the wound on the right upper chest labeled number 2, which is the same as gunshot wound D.
Okay. Dr. Liu, let's show the members of the jury, please. If you would step down. And you said this was a penetrating gunshot wound. Is there anything unusual about this wound?
This wound is larger and more irregular than the nice round wounds that I've been describing as the typical entrance wound.
So what does that tell you about this wound?
The projectile from this wound likely went through something else before entering the body, especially when I could feel the projectile just under the skin.
Why especially? Because you can feel it under the skin.
A projectile, when it goes into the body, you expect it to go all the way through, or at least a good part of the way through the body. This one did not.
Okay, thank you. You may have a seat. Please tell the members of the jury where this projectile went, what it did in her body.
It is just below the neck, so it tore the lower end of the right neck muscle coming from the right ear region, and it grazed or scraped against the right collarbone. And the most important injury is that it tore one of the largest vessels in that part of the body, one of the largest arteries coming off the aorta, which comes directly out of the heart.
We're going to get back to that in one moment. I want to ask you if you recovered anything from this wound.
Yes.
And what did you recover?
A projectile was just under the skin to the right of that wound.
So
In the exhibit, that is.
Okay, thank you. You know what? Come step down, please. Please feel free to show on the exhibit where you were talking about that you found the projectile.
Just under the skin, right here. So this is more towards the midline of the body, which would be here.
Okay. And Dr. Liu, going back to Exhibit 188. Could you please indicate which is the projectile that was recovered from wound D, number 2 in the photos?
This projectile right here, second from the left, along the upper row.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Liu. Now, Dr. Liu, were you able to tell the path of the projectile with this particular injury?
Remember that the projectile was just inside the skin, so it was simply going from front to back in this case.
Okay, and could you please then indicate that on our visual aid? Thank you. Dr. Liu, what would have been the immediate effect on Jennifer of this gunshot wound?
There would have been pain because the hole was made in the skin, the muscle was torn, the bone was scraped, and there would be a lot of bleeding because the brachiocephalic artery, which was lacerated, is a major artery.
Would this wound have been life-threatening or certainly much more immediate?
Yes, both.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's talk about that. A wound can certainly bleed even if it's not life-threatening, obviously, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can someone bleed out from a series of wounds even if not one of them in particular is life-threatening?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Liu, let's move on to gunshot wound E. Showing the jurors what's in evidence. Again, it states 190 in the overall. Dr. Liu, can you please tell the jurors which is wound E?
Gunshot wound E is on the left side of the front of the neck, just above the left collarbone. It is labeled number 3 in the exhibit.
Okay. Thank you. Is this a penetrating gunshot wound?
Yes, the bullet went into the body and stayed in the body.
Okay. So I'm offering into evidence without objection what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 10I.
So noted. Thank you, Jeanette.
That Exhibit 10I marked for identification now becomes State Exhibit 194.
Thank you. Dr. Liu, I'm showing you what's in evidence as State's Exhibit 194. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
This is a close-up photograph of gunshot wound E, labeled number 3.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to publish that. Let's publish that to the members of the jury, please, so they can see. Judge, may I just ask if we inquire if I leave the TV at an angle if the jurors can see both the TV and Dr. Liu so we don't have to keep moving it.
Ladies and gentlemen, with the TV in its present angle, is there any juror who is unable to see Dr. Liu? If so, please raise a hand. Okay, so you all can see both? Okay.
Okay, so it's
Thank
okay if I leave it there?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Van, if you need to move, whatever you need. Okay.
Tell us, please, where this projectile goes.
It goes into the skin and tears the lower portion of the muscle that comes from the left side of the neck and grazes or scrapes the left collarbone, goes through the soft tissues in the upper chest, and then through the front part of what's called T2 of the spine before ending up in the right upper back.
Now, Doctor, what observations were you able to make about the skin surrounding wound number E, which is number 3 in the picture?
Associated with this wound are multiple tiny red dots. That is the gunpowder stippling we were referring to before, caused by pieces of gunpowder.
I'm offering into evidence without objection what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 10H.
Is that correct? So moved?
State Exhibit 10H, marked for identification, item from State Exhibit 195.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you to come down, please. Dr. Liu, showing you and the jurors what's in State's Exhibit 195. Please explain to the members of the jury what we're looking at.
We are looking at a photograph of the front of the neck. This is number 1 on the right side of the chin. So you're looking at this area. This is gunshot wound number 3. This one is number 4 on the left side of the lower jaw.
Okay. Now, you indicated before that you were able to make an observation about stiffling. Could you indicate where that is in this photograph?
Yes. Those of you who have good eyesight can see the little red dots in this region. And you go all the way up to the head here. But they're most concentrated in this area. The little red dots.
Now, did you find any of those dots, that stippling, underneath her chin?
On the chin, but not underneath the chin.
Okay, what does that tell you?
It tells me that her chin is down to prevent the undersurface of the chin being affected by the stiffling.
And is the wound depicted in number 3 a re-entry, as we discussed earlier with some of the other wounds?
No, there are exhibits that show that number 3 is nice and round, unlike number 1 and unlike number 4.
Dr. Liu, was anything recovered as it relates to this gunshot wound?
Yes, a projectile was recovered from the right upper back.
I'm offering into evidence what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 10G.
Any objection? So moved?
State Exhibit 10G, marked for identification, item from State Exhibit 196.
Dr. Liu, I'm showing you what's in evidence in State's Exhibit 196. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
This is a photograph of the right upper back, and it shows an incision that was made by Dr. Johnson to expose the projectile that was on the right upper back associated with gunshot wound E.
Okay. I'm going to ask permission to publish this to the jury.
You may.
you just said an incision was made.
Correct.
Why did you have to make an incision in the back?
The projectile was more difficult to reach from the front of the body during the autopsy. So in cases like this, we turn the body over, make an incision so that we get to the projectile, which is essentially in the soft tissues under the skin.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Lee, you indicated that you recovered the deformed copper jacket, right? I'm sorry, I just had you here.
Yes.
Showing you what's in evidence in State's Exhibit 188. Could you please indicate again for the members of the jury which was the one that you recovered associated with
This one, the lowest one right here,
Okay.
associated with gunshot wound E.
Could I trouble you to please put a sticky on there? Now, Dr. Lee, were you able to determine the path of this projectile?
Yes. It went from Ms. Alfonso's front towards her back, from her left side towards her right side, and going slightly downward in her body.
And I'm going to again ask you to step down and with the use of visual aid, please show the members of the jury the path of this bullet.
It entered the left side of the neck, going from front to back, left to right, and downward in the body.
Would you please tell members of the jury what would have been the immediate effects on Jennifer of this gunshot wound?
Again, pain because the skin was punctured, the muscle was torn, the left collarbone was scraped, and then it went through the spine, the bone of the spine. So there would be pain, there would be bleeding, and possible collapse.
Judge, can we come sidebar?
Yes, you may. My orders and instructions, as always, I will ask that you need to be back at 11:35 at the other end of the hallway or wherever Jose has you all meeting these days. Okay, thank you. All rise for the jury, please.